reserves. Their elections 127,000 is coming from the if you went to look. So there would be some room to pull the operating reserves if the committee so chose to help reduce requisition even lower.
Follow up.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, Ms. Weiner, so I take it that we have a policy on how much should come out of our operating reserve, and that's why we've settled on 110. Is that right?
It's because the 110 would bring you down, but you would then be around your four-month operating reserve maximum. So that's easy. You take it from there. It's a one-time expenditure. If you wanted to go farther into the operating reserves closer to the 2, then the committee can choose to utilize those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I turn to Director Morrison. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Weiner. And that's in part why I'd asked for the operating reserve balances and policies, in that obviously this is a substantial hit to this budget, and one that we can't not put off. I would strongly urge the committee to consider that we look at reducing requisition, especially in this particular area, since it's a cost that we can't avoid, and would even suggest that we look at reducing the requisition for 250 to even 0 if we could. We've put a max of 3%, but I'll just say now that given what has already been authorized by other committees, I'd like to see this committee show some leadership if we can get our requisition on function 250, which is, let's face it, this is our principal sort of council budget. It will hold us in good stead when we go to some of the other larger regional budgets. So Ms. Weiner's opened the door and suggested that there are funds. We may get to below the maximum, but this is a fairly healthy operating reserve, and I would suggest that it's more than appropriate to be using it in this circumstance. And you know, yes, we could just go down to the 3, but I think there's is it a $46,000 number that could be fairly easily accommodated within the operating reserve, and that would get us to, I believe, a 0 or fairly close to. Thank you.
Comments, Ms. Weiner?
Through the chair to the committee, if there $137,013 was taken from the operating reserves, there would be a balance of requisition increase of 2.31%.
Okay, thank you. So I turn to the committee. Director Nicholson, go ahead. And I'm not sure, Director Smith, did you have your hand up? You're okay? Okay, Director Nicholson, go ahead, please.
So I'd just like to clarify, so how much would be left in the operating reserve if we did that?
Ms. Weiner?
Just 1 second, we jump into a bunch of different spreadsheets as we go along here.
About 360,000.
We would be down because there's some commitments already down to 258,000.
Okay.
And
follow up, go ahead.
So what do we normally use those operating reserve things for? Because it seems to me that this would be reduced, if this takes us below what the policy is, what kind of risk would we be placing on expenses that come up during the year that we might need that for, or in the future?
Ms. Weiner?
Through the chair to Director Nicholson. The expenditures, it follows the policy. This is a one-time expenditure, elections. It happens cyclically through the cycle. With the reduction, you would not be below the 2-month minimum. It would put the committee between the 2 and the 4. So there was excess funds over, which is why staff went and took the liberty of recommending the withdrawal. but the minimum for the committee is 141,000 is the minimum for operating reserves.
Thank you. I turn to Director Morrison. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that clarification. And you know, I think that staff have done a good job in and you know, I wouldn't call it squirreling away funds, but being prudent with the dollars so that they are available. We know that there's this election expense coming up, and given the dollars that are available and the fact that the operating reserve would be left you know, comfortably within the range of the minimum and maximum. I can see us, you know, for that election expense getting down to that 2 point whatever percent. But I just want to remind everyone that we've already made commitments that are going to be onerous when they all come together. And I think we could show some leadership to our regional colleagues if we could work this into a position with the operating reserves to get us closer to 0 than to 3. Thank you.
Okay, so Director Salmon, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm totally in agreement with Director Morrison, and I really think it is important. Upcoming discussions, if we got close to 0, we'd at least have a bit of leadership and a starting point. So if Director Morrison wanted to move that, I would second that, or if I know we have any other item.
Okay, I'll just turn to Ms. Weiner first, and then Director Wilson, and then I'll see. Go ahead, Ms. Weiner, you had your hand up.
For the committee's information, that would go against the policy. It would be reducing it down, as well as I would caution the committee, because in the next year, to go back up to where you are, the committee wishes to be, there would be a greater increase to requisition. So it is a delay to an increase to requisition. If operating reserves are used for ongoing expenses, it catches up in future years.
Thank you. Director Wilson?
Yeah, good advice there. I'd be more in favour of sticking to the guidelines, obviously, that Ms. Weiner has brought up. It would be nice to get it to 0, but if it has to be below the 3% or close to the 3% that we've asked for, then I would be happy with that as well. So that's the kind of line I would like to go along. I do have another question on something which comes further down the line, and I'll wait until that comes up. Thank you.
Okay, I turn to, go ahead, Director Martman.
Thanks, and I do appreciate the comments by all my colleagues, and I have no issues with them. And I do appreciate staff, you know, keeping us navigating this through this. I still think there's room and I have a lot more questions coming out. You've asked all my questions for me, so I haven't had to say anything. But as we go through the line items, there may be areas there where we can carve off some without going into operating reserves. And so. Or maybe we'll add, I'm not sure, but I would like to have some clarification on some of the further items.
Okay,
Before
Director
we
Salmon?
vote on anything.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Director
you.
Salmon?
So thank you. Yeah, just so a question for Ms. Weiner, just to clarify on our operating reserve policy. So election expenses are considered ongoing, or are they're every 4 years? So I'm not sure I followed your caution about dipping into reserve for ongoing. It seems like a more occasional expense.
Ms. Weiner?
Through the chair to Director Salmon, actually, the election is one of those things where it would actually be seen that money would go into operating reserves specifically to pay for the election. So there isn't a spike in requisition every 4 years, which is part of the reason why the reserves have been built up the way they are, is to help offset things. And the estimation was about $110,000. So that is considered a one-time expense because it's one time, it goes away. Yes, it does come back every 4 years, but it's not an ongoing year to year expenditure.
Okay, follow up, Director Salmon?
So if we wanted to take a little more, like another 20,000 out, it wouldn't be, is that going to really, how big a deal is that?
Ms. Weiner?
Through the chair to Director Salmon, that is where I mentioned that the committee, if they so chose, could go and do the whole 137,000 out of the reserve, which would drop them down to that 2.31%.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I asked that because I think that's what I was wanting to do. And I don't know if Director Morrison may have in that, but I would like to move that now if,
I just have one more speaker, and then I will
Okay.
turn back to you. I have Director Nicholson. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Now I'm getting confused. Um, so it seems to me that we need to make sure that we're putting money into the operating reserve every year for the 3 years leading up, for all 4 years for election, to cover the election expenses. So my question is, if we take out, if we use the whole amount for the election out of operating reserves, then does that mean we are not putting in money this coming year for the subsequent election 4 years from down the road? Is that what will be happening?
Ms. Weiner or Ms. Nielsen, I don't know.
Through the chair to Director Nicholson, you are correct. There would be no money going in. You typically would not put money into a reserve in the year of the actual election, because the money that would normally go into the reserve goes towards the election. So what you would see is in 2022 or 2023 is funds would start being built up and putting back into the reserve for the next election.
So
Just go ahead, please.
So then that $27,000 wasn't specifically to do that. Okay, so why did you choose the 27,000? Or why was it?
Through the chair to Director Nicholson, the reason is the cost of the election is projected to be 137,000. There was 110,000 in the reserves, but as the committee is still within that range, you could utilize all and pay for the whole cost of the election out of the operating reserves.
Okay, so for subsequent years, we can expect the election to cost more money. So we will need to be putting more money in our operating reserves, one way or the other, for the elections down the road. And we need to start doing that as part of the budgeting. Correct?
That, through the chair to Director Nicholson, that would be my recommendation, is in 2023, you look at what the costs were for the 2022 election, add a little bit extra for inflation for 4 years down the road, and that's the amount you would be starting to want to put into the reserve every year.
So we may be creating a bit of a need to spike the requisition next year if we are taking too much from our operating reserve this year.
Yes, I believe so. Okay, Director Martman, go ahead, please.
Okay, that's not, sorry, I have, let me think through. That's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that in 2023, we will continue on putting money in reserves for the next election cycle. Right now, we have enough money that we can take out of, they had $110,000 over and above our surplus, so that they could take that out without discussion with the board, and that they're recommending that if we want to go into the remainder, that we make a motion to go into the remainder, be between the 2 and 4 months. That's I think I don't see any issues and don't see a spike coming up next year, but I do have a concern about making a motion right now, because the question I have is the $27,000 the right amount to take from operating reserves? Because if we get and we start talking about election expenses, I do have questions around that, because it's about a 150% increase from 4 years ago, and just trying to wrap my head around that 150%. So is that, or should that be a higher amount, or should it be less? We have a referendum included coming up as well, and so are all those things taken into consideration? Perhaps it needs to be higher. So I don't want to lock ourselves into making a motion and voting on something when something may change as we learn more information, apply that to our what we understand, have the knowledge to make a decision.
Thank you. I have Director Morrison, then I have Director Salmon, and then I have Director Kuhn, and that sounds like a good way to go. But go ahead, Director Morrison.
Thank you, Director Martman, for your segue, because I think that's sort of, every year we discuss how we're going to process, or how we're going to go through this process. And yeah, a lot goes into the determination of what the staff put in there for the anticipated expenditure. And so we had some acclamations last year, our last election. There were there was a referendum question. So, it's not for us to figure out what the right number is, because we have professional staff that do that and they plug this number in. I believe they have to assume that there's going to be 9 electoral area director elections. And that number may be reduced if there's acclamations. So I have full confidence that the expenditure side numbers that staff are putting in there are numbers that we should be able to trust. So, and right the way through the other line items that you'll probably have, questions and clarifications that you may want to explore. But as it comes to this, we can dive into each one of those, and our staff who plug the numbers in will have an answer for each of those. We've got questions as to whether or not there will be travel next year, conferences. Will AVICC be an in-person event? How many will want to go? What about UBCM? I think those are some of the questions that you're right. We could add to this number, but we can do it simply by passing a motion to go into the operating reserve range, and the meeting would be just about done, except for clarification of some of those questions that directors have. But I think beyond the election expense, and I trust the numbers that staff have put in, I think we have to have a discussion about travel and conferences as part of this budget, because this is where the money comes from. Thanks.
2018 did not include the COVID safety protocol expenses as well, right? Not good. Okay, I'm just checking on that. Ms. Weiner?
To the chair, the 2018 expenditures, I think there's also costs in for contractors to help and assist with the elections as well. I think what you might find with the COVID, there's new requirements that's going to increase costs. There's new procedures that will increase costs. And I'd probably defer to Ms. Harrison, that knows probably more about the elections and that than I would.
Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the committee members. Ms. Warner is absolutely correct. All of those things are impacting the bottom line for running a local government election. When you add in COVID safety protocols, you're increasing your costs. Also, costs for everything has gone up, including a region-wide referendum. We're also dealing with our member municipalities' increased costs. So all of these contribute to a higher bottom line.
Thank you. So I will continue on with, I'll go to Director Kuhn, then Director Salmon, and then Director Nicholson. Go ahead, Director Kuhn.
Yeah, I'd just like to complete that thought. So the election expense are 137,000. So in other words, if we want to build up for the next election, we have 3 years after that, and in the 3 years we'll have to contribute 137,000. So it's about 40,000, over 40,000 a year, right? So we'd have to be prepared for that, because that'll be an increase in the upcoming 3 years. And but to get back to there was one question raised with regard to the referendum. That wouldn't come out of the same account. The referendum is a different account, isn't it? That wouldn't come out of. Would that come out of election? No, it wouldn't.
Ms. Weiner?
Who can answer that?
Ms. Nelson, does that come out of?
I'm deferring to Ms. Harrison, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Director Kuhn. My understanding is that there is a separate referendum account. However, part of our election expenses from this budget is also cost shared between all of the member municipalities. And in the event that, you know, the referendum is unsuccessful, those costs have to be carried from this account.
Okay,
All right.
okay,
Thank
thank you, Director Kuhn. I turn to Director Salmon, then Director Nicholson. Go ahead, Director Salmon.
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's a good point that we have several other items to go through. So that motion I was going to make right now about election expenses would basically
Okay,
picking
so
up
we'll
on.
carry on and then come back to that. I have Director Nicholson and then we'll
Yeah,
carry on.
but sorry, Madam Chair, I'll just finish that.
Okay, sorry.
I'm wondering if we had broad agreement, if we were trying to get to say zero, and Director Morrison said if we'd have sort of a, maybe Ms. Weiner could help with the tally. I know we could have possibilities as we go through these so that at the end we can decide what we have, you know, if that's possible, Ms. Weiner. I know you quickly had guessed, I'd figured out we'd be down to 2.4 if we, percent if we did this election one that you just suggested. So I'm wondering if we can, if it's possible for you to guide us after we've gone through as to what our options are.
Absolutely. If the committee, can make adjustments as you go through, as Ms. Nelson takes you through the budget, then she can go and discuss, as she knows the background of each of these line items a lot better than I do, but I definitely can be behind the scenes making those adjustments so you know where you're at.
Fantastic.
Thank you. I turn now to Director Nicholson and then we carry on down attachment A.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Director Salmon. I think it would be useful to go through everything and then come back to the things that we are interested in and do it all together.
Okay, so we will carry on. Everyone's with me? Carry on down the list. So we got as far, we go to directors, regular pay, benefits. Oh, Director Salmon.
Yeah, just for clarification, so this amount, director's regular pay, 136,000. So that's not all our pay. Is it come out of some of their budget as well?
Ms. Oh, okay. Go. Whoever. Ms. Nielsen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right off the bat, my apologies to the committee. And through the chair to Director Salmon, no, it's not. It actually, this line item for the pay is actually cost shared with 100 because you do a portion of your work is regional as well as electoral area service work. So there is a split between your full pay and 100.
Follow up, go ahead, please.
And okay, thank you, that helps. And so I assume that also applies to benefits and director's expenses.
Ms. Nielsen?
It applies to benefits, not to director's expenses.
Okay, and one more follow-up then.
Go ahead.
So for director's expenses then, what percent, like it says 10,800 for what percent of the total director's expenses is that?
Through the chair to Director Salmon, that is actually from a committee and board resolution from, I believe, 2020, $1,200 per director times 9 directors.
I see. And the rest would come out of function 100?
Not this one.
Through the chair to Director Salmon, the $10,800 is nothing to be shared. It is full. Each electoral area directors, it usually goes to your volunteer appreciation that you do once a year. That's what your director's expenses are for.
Follow up, Director Salmon?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that helps. I was thinking of our travel expenses, or that's somewhere else then, is it? I see, okay. I'm fine then, I'll wait.
Okay, because we can move on to community information. Director Wilson, Director Martman, and then Director Salmon.
Yeah, can you just expand on what that actually is community information, please?
Through the chair to Director Wilson, this is the $6,000 per electoral area director for their community, to advertise for their community, to get out their word of their community, which after last year, there was a resolution for a 50% reduction. It was originally budgeted at $54,000 at $6,000 per, and we reduced that by half.
Follow up, Director Wilson, you're okay. I turn to Director Martman, and then I believe Director Salmon, and then Smith. Director
I'm
Martman.
curious. Yeah, thank you, Chair. And through the staff, I appreciate the numbers, and I don't know how far back we can go to discuss this, but I see that this is not a very highly utilized function or line item because of 2018, 19, and 2020 actuals don't go beyond sort of $15,000. So if it's not being utilized that way, and I understand we've given direction to go 6,000 per electoral director, I would wonder if this is an area that we could further reduce to what has been actually experienced.
I'm not seeing any. Director Morrison, did you want to speak directly to that? And then I'll go back to.
Yes, I do. And actually maybe a little bit the process, because I think we're probably going to be asking questions on each item as we go through that will probably be explained by staff if they're given an opportunity to present each line item and the likes. So I don't know if it's a good suggestion to let Ms. Nelson sort of do the presentation, and then we can come back to the items of interest for individual directors. But just for Director Martman's benefit, this is an important source of funds to outreach to community. And COVID has essentially driven us to a position where unless you're doing something online, there's no opportunity. So this is bulletin board stuff, mailings, that sort of thing. And I anticipate use of a good portion of the allocation that will be available to me as a director for this upcoming year for the work that needs to be done and the likes as we come out of COVID. So yes, it looks like it's an underutilized thing. We haven't been able to utilize it for some time, and I know that there will be some directors that will want to do some outreach and engage with their community members in a live format. I wouldn't want to be looking at reducing this because it's an important year coming up. It's an election year. There will need to be engagement with community members, and this is, I think, a good position what staff have recommended. But going back to our process here, perhaps we could have staff make the present. That's what we've done in the past. Staff have stood up, presented the budget, presented the information. We've taken our notes and we've come back and discussed the items of interest after the fact. Usually they impart a lot of information of questions that people may ask if we give them the opportunity to make their presentation.
Okay,
Thank you.
So I'm looking to the committee. If I turn this back, giving staff to go down one by one, explaining it, and then we can discuss, is that the way everyone wants to go? Oh, okay, I'm getting thumbs up. But I still have Director Salmon, Smith, and Morrison. Are you okay with us going ahead with staff just going down the list? Okay. We'll change this 10 times by the time we're finished, I think, but we're working on it. So we might come up with a conclusion now. Ms. Nielsen, are you fine with taking over, going ahead with conference and seminars? And then you just can give a brief description and carry on down.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I most certainly am. Conferences and seminars. So conferences and seminars, this line item is with respect to electoral area directors. They are entitled to attend up to 2 conferences or seminars or workshops a year, providing all costs incurred does not exceed $500. They can do this without committee approval. If it goes over that, they do need to get approval by the committee, but that's the math there of $9,000, $1,000 each director.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Travel. This is travel incurred by electoral area directors while conducting CVRD business. It is not for the conference travel of AVICC, FCM, or UBCM. This is outside of that. This would be shared with 100 for committee meetings and business travel.
Thank you. I do have Director Smith that has a question on the previous one, I believe, on the conference and seminars. Director Smith, did you have your hands up?
Yes, through the chair to Ms. Nelson, I'd like to know, is this including our online courses if we're taking any, those directors that are taking online courses or attending conferences or seminars?
Through the chair to Director Smith, yes, it is for your training and development, as well as conferences, seminars, workshops.
Thank you. Carry on. Thank you. I don't see any other hands up.
So moving on to telephone, this is your cellular devices, your mobile devices. We estimate a replacement for you of $800 each for your cell phones. Moving on to miscellaneous equipment.
Oh, sorry, we have a cell phone question. Go ahead, Director Smith.
I would like to make a comment about my cell phone that I received that was the past director of the areas that went way back in time. The battery dies on it all the time. So seeing a line in here for a new telephone, I'm pretty excited, but is there a time frame that I might have it? You know, is this that we're not going to get the new cell phones until 2022? Or was it budgeted for 2021?
Through the chair to Director Smith, as a matter of fact, in 2021, our mobile contract has come due. You will be entitled to get a cell phone this year if your cell phone is not operational. And then this would be jumping into an election cycle for new directors, potentially.
Okay, so we did agree that the staff would go through the presentation and then you could hold your questions, because I think we're just back to square one again. So we agreed that the questions, staff will go through and then you can keep your notes for the questions that you want to ask. Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a matter of clarity for Director Smith and the other directors, I had the same problem earlier this year. I contacted IT and we replaced the phone very quickly. So if you need your phones, contact IT. They're very, very willing to help you out there.
Thank you. So I'll let you go ahead, Ms. Nelson, and we will take questions at the end. So everyone, committee, please take notes on the questions you have for Ms. Nelson when she's finished explaining each description item. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving on to miscellaneous equipment. This is to be used for replacement laptops. And there is an increase in this. We are attempting to, our wish is to actually get onto an election cycle with our electoral area directors. I am aware that late last year and early this year, there were some replacements due to COVID. Though the idea, if the committee chooses to do this, those laptops will be redeployed and they will be replaced with new ones going forward in next year. We estimate about $1,500 per laptop. Moving on to the computer software upgrade, this would be for the licenses for those laptops, including a chair if it is an electoral area director chair. The 2021 license fee was $240 for Microsoft license. Moving on to the allocations. The general government, there's a decrease. It's based on actual expenses of 2019, I believe, Ms. Weiner, 2019 or 2020, for clarification.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you. The allocation for GIS. This allocation for GIS, there's an increase. It is directly due to an increase in union wages and benefits. That is what the increase is for that. Moving on to sundry expenses. This is strictly for incidental one-time purchases that an electoral area director may incur. Meeting expenses. Historically, the meeting expenses were for your Electoral Area Services Committee, for your catering and your commissionaire. This is now for any catering of any forums that we may hold for you, as well as strategic planning sessions or workshops that are done. Moving along to
Contingency?
contingency, thank you. The contingency, that is the contingency. May I defer to Ms. Weiner on contingency, please?
Ms. Weiner?
To the committee, contingency is put in, and just in case some lines go over, you always have unforeseen circumstances that arise. Say maybe, such as you were mentioning, cell phones needed replacing and more than the budget allowed for. It sort of is a placeholder of funds that can be overexpended on different lines.
Thank you.
Moving along to the election expenditures. This is where you'll see your breakdown of your $137,013, the estimate for that. The payment for the election officials. Madam Chair, would you like me to go through each of these?
Yes, please.
Benefits of $2,000, approximately $19,000 for advertising. Potential for legal services of $2,000. Renting facilities to house election facilities, $9,000. Sundry expenses of $1,350 to be safe, as well as supplies in order to run the election. The alternative approval process for $2,000 in the contingency. And moving on to UBCM. Recognizing that there may be a return to in-person conferences, UBCM next year is in Whistler. And it is, per last year's resolution, we reduced it by 50%. So I looked at 9 electoral area directors attending and halved it, and estimating on travel costs, et cetera, to go. Remains to be seen if this will actually happen or not. But it is based on hotel, a per diem, and the reduction of 50%.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the travel, and the registration. So again, estimating at previous year's costs of in-person registration costs, because the virtual registration costs were considerably less than in-person registration costs, and the membership is based on last year's registration. AVICC, I beg your pardon, AVICC is taking place in Victoria, estimated with a hotel for 9 directors and the per diem of $100 a day for 9 directors and a reduction of 50%. The travel would be the mileage incurred at 59 cents a kilometer, which is our current mileage rate, and a 50% reduction. And the registration, again, with a 50% reduction based on in-person registration. And the membership fees. The membership fees, there's been a slight spike, or well, a double in that, due to the fact that it's the AVICC membership, but it's also social procurement. We realigned it to function 250. It was in 100. It's now in function 250 because the membership fee is for procurement is based on the population of the electoral areas. And director's expenses for FCM, which is in Regina. Estimating hotel, per diem, and a reduction of 50%. The travel is the airfare. And the registration, again, based on in-person conference registration with a 50% reduction. The transfer to other functions is the $80,000 for the GIS ortho photos.
Great. And with that, and everyone can make their notes and get their notes ready, we'll have a 10-minute break. Thank you so much. Okay, I think everyone is back. Camera's just getting started. Okay, we're back. And everybody's got their questions. And who would like to go first? Director Salmon, go ahead, please. Questions for staff.
Yeah, question for staff, for Ms. Weiner, I think. Just on the 2021 actuals, what is that till what date is that?
That's Ms. Nielsen, wasn't it? Ms. Nielsen.
The 2021 actuals are based up to the time I prepared the report. So it was the date of the report, I beg your pardon, 2 weeks ago. Sorry. Oh, here it is. September 28th.
Okay.
Follow up, Director Salmon, go ahead.
Thank you. So yeah, just looking at the very last line, the surplus deficit. So I don't understand. It says 227,000, right? Very last line of schedule. It's schedule A. It looks from the total expenditures, the line right above that, that it should be more like 305,000 surplus right now.
Ms. Nielsen?
Through the chair to Director Salmon, I beg your pardon, Mayor. With respect to surplus, I need to defer to Ms. Weiner.
Go ahead, Ms. Weiner.
Through the chair to Director Salmon, not all of the requisition, as you can see on the report, has been pulled in at this point. We do that on a gradual ongoing basis. So I would be looking at just giving you a general guideline of where you're at right up until the end of August. We do the September actuals are not in this number. So you have up until the end of August in there. And so sort of look at it as this is like 2/3 of the way through the year, and there's 1/3 left to go. It's just meant as a guideline.
Okay, yeah, you're the only one. Go ahead, Director Salmon.
Just wondering if you
so I have Director Smith.
Are we on track? Are we on track? Are we where we should be for our actuals versus our budget that we?
Through the chair to Director Salmon, you're actually in a better position because, as you can see, the budget was in as a higher for things like conferences, meetings, travel, those type of things, where the expenditures have not occurred. So you're definitely on track and looking in a good position.
Thank you.
Director Smith, go ahead, please. I'll come back to you, Director Salmon. Do you have more?
Oh, that's fine.
Director Smith and then Director Morrison.
So I'd just like to go back to the community information, and can you explain once again what the community information? I think there was something like 9,000 or 6,000 per director, but the budget for 2022 is only 3,000 per director. And can you explain in more detail what expenses those are?
Ms. Nielsen.
Through the chair to Director Smith, these expenses would be directly thinking of Director Acton, who I'm aware is not here. She does use this GL considerably. She would be advertising in their local newspaper or that type of expense. Anything to get information out to your community. So
can I have a follow-up on that? I don't know that I've actually used any of that in the past 3 years. And can you let me know if I have? Like, what is it that I would have done that might have utilized some of those funds? If we have one director who is using it and the rest of us are kind of lost on using it, maybe this is something we need to look at when we're trying to communicate with our communities.
Ms. Nielsen?
Through the chair to Director Smith, not all of you do use it. In fact, I can think of just a couple that do. A number of years ago, the director for Electoral Area C was hoping to expand into different types of media to get community or information out to his constituents, and the budget was increased to $6,000 each director in order for that to happen. And last year, that $6,000 we budgeted consistently $54,000 a year, and last budget year it was reduced by half. It was not being used, and due to COVID and the way of the world, it was reduced by 50%.
I
Follow-up,
find
Director?
yes, please. I find that my communication, because of the newspaper, is not actually reaching people in my community, that I end up going to the printer, printing posters, and then paying for them out of my own pocket and putting them up at the mailboxes, and they technically don't qualify as information to the community, is what I was told. Would that have qualified for communication?
Yes, it
Oh,
would.
okay.
Mhm.
Well, all right. That's good to know. So one of the things is, if we're not utilizing this, then should we be looking at reducing it further? I'm not sure. No, I see Ian shaking his head. I mean, if I'm not using it to any extent and other directors don't seem to be using it, then are we over budgeting on that one by when it comes to 27,000?
I have Directors Morrison and Salmon. Maybe you'll get Director Morrison?
Thank you. I have a question about conferences and seminars, because I'm not sure that I heard Ms. Nelson, but just to that question, their directors, we've talked about this at every budget cycle from what I can recall, and I think the decision to I'm talking about the communication budget, and the decision to reduce it was I think made fully recognizing that COVID was going to eliminate the possibility for community meetings and all of those sorts of things, and that interaction with our community would be limited. I fully intend to be engaging with the community on a number of levels, and would be very concerned if we started to reduce our ability to have in-person events if and when we're allowed to do that again. So I know that some haven't used it, and I would encourage those of you that want to communicate with your community that the dollars are there for a reason. And reducing it much more would be problematic in my mind. But to the issue of conferences, did I hear Ms. Nelson say that we have cut that number in half? We've just taken the total of what it was and cut it in half. So that would be, so she's nodding yes. So understandable given COVID for last year's budget, but I didn't think that we had up and decided that half of us are only going to be permitted to attend AVICC, or, and I guess I'm concerned that this is half of what it would, what we would need to be able to attend conferences as electoral area directors.
Ms.
I just put
Nelson?
out there for comment.
I believe we still have the policy where each director can go to 2 meetings, 2 of these a year. A while back, I don't know.
I'm talking about the major conferences.
Yes.
UBCM,
So was I.
AVICC, FCM.
Yes. Ms. Nielsen.
Through the chair to Director Morrison. Yes, so October of 2020, the resolution was made to reduce those by 50%. So there was discussion last year about not all directors going the same year, that perhaps going on to a rotating cycle of, those that express interest going at least once in their term. That was discussed, but at this moment, we're looking at the 50%.
So COVID would have probably, we were thinking of that as well. So I'm not sure if we want to change any of that. And I turn now to Director Salmon. Go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'll have something to say on the conferences, but just while we're on community information, yeah, I just think that we're way over. Like, even prior to COVID, the actuals were 4,000 odd and 9,000 odd, so we're budgeted at 27,000 now. I think we could reduce, particularly as a lot of the communications online, which is very cheap or free. I think cutting that in half again would be totally. We've never gotten even to half of that. So I'd like maybe if I don't know if we need to move it or if Ms. Weiner can just keep track of her in her tally there. If we cut that in half, what we could come back to looking at after we go through the whole list.
Okay.
Ms. Weiner.
I know personally, I don't think I've ever used it, but never really. And anyway, so any other questions? I don't have anybody else on my, Director Martman, go ahead, please.
So thanks for those previous questions. And I just have a couple of smaller ones. One's under the alternate approval heading of contingency. And I see that we have 2,000 being budgeted for that. Is there an alternate approval process going forward in 2022? Or could you explain that?
Yeah.
Through the chair to Director Martman, I will need to defer to Ms. Weiner on this.
Ms. Harrison can answer it as well.
Thank you,
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. Through you to Director Martman. Those funds are stored in there in the event that an alternate approval process is carried out. I'm unclear as to how many we will have in 2022, if any, but it's there basically for the advertising.
Follow up, Director Martman, are you okay?
Good, but that's leads me to, I guess, the second one where the contingency was explained under the general expenditures. And I just, for my clarity, is that is explained because some things go over and this is sort of a way to draw money from? Is this because there's no way to move money between line items after the budget's been set?
Ms. Nelson?
Through the chair to Director Martman, I'll
Weiner.
take this.
Go ahead.
The contingency, yes, you're correct, because you're trying to make the numbers as accurate as possible so the directors get a true pictures of what they're budgeting for, and that's why. That being said, this budget has regularly had surpluses, and I would look at reducing that line if you wanted to. If the committee wanted to reduce that, say to $1,000, there is some room there, in my opinion.
Thank you. No follow-up.
Okay. Director Smith. I don't know if I've missed anyone. I'll turn to Director Smith. Go ahead, please.
So the alternate approval process, if it was for a loan for, say, the Saltair water system, which is an alternate approval process we went through, would that not be funded by the Saltair water system that alternate approval process because it was very specific. So it is, I'm just trying to figure out what alternate approval process would fall under this one.
Ms. Harrison.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Director Smith. This is set up here in the event that your AAP is unsuccessful. If it's successful, then it's charged back to the service once it's created.
Thank you. Is there a follow-up, Director Smith? Okay. All right. So I see no other. Okay, Director Martman, go ahead, please.
So to staff, thank you for taking the patience to go through this with us and our questions, telling you some things that we don't know about this. I'm going to suggest that we have a stumbling block, and that is under what other directors have pointed out around the 50% reduction and no process to establish this. That's a big concern for me in terms of saying that these numbers are going to be accurate, because if you have one of these conventions attended fully, we are going to be all this discussion about trying to get a budget down to 0 or even down below 3 is out the window, because we're just not going to achieve that in reality. So I guess I would like to sort of, with the experienced people at this table here, what would be the process to ensure that we have some kind of rigor behind this budget so that we can feel that we can walk away and say, yes, we have something that we can actually meet? Don't know who can answer that question.
Director Morrison.
Thank you. So there's been various attempts over the years to look at the most appropriate way of picking and choosing and what's the right amount and the likes. And Director Yanni DiNardo may disagree with me on this one, I'm not sure, but the most successful we've been in conferences and meetings and the like has been when all directors have the ability to attend all the conferences. Now, that may sound like it's a bit of a rich proposition, but we have done very well in attendance at FCMs and getting grant dollars allocated towards our regional district, UBCM as well, and the learning opportunities at AVICC have been pretty good. So, I can say that there have been other jurisdictions, because when we go and network at these events with other jurisdictions that have limits on who can attend and who can and cannot attend, there's usually chafing there, because every conference is different. So while I fully acknowledge that we're trying to, watch our nickels and dimes, we have had great success in sending as many directors that want to go to conventions, and not to say that they're a perk, because some of us work really hard when we go to conventions. I think they've been invaluable to this organization. So I think half is dangerous. I think we should be moving towards having as many key people at events as we can. That's all.
Director Nicholson, go ahead, please. Oh, Director Kuhn, my apologies, you're correct. Go ahead, Director Kuhn, then Director Nicholson.
I don't know why this discussion is coming up now at 100% again. I mean, we decided 50%. So why are we discussing that now? Do you want to revise all that? If we try to go, all of us, that'll be a real jump in the budget now. And we better get that straightened out, because, yeah, I mean, do you want to play with that now and say, oh, well, 50% is not good enough, let's go 100%. Well, hey, do you have any item where you can cut? I haven't seen any item where we can seriously cut. So then we're really over the border. So I don't know why this is coming up. I don't get it.
Ms. Nielsen, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking at the historical data and the detailed financials that I provided to you for as attachment A, 2018 and 2019, the historical attendance for FCM and ABICC was not at 100%. It was around the 50%. UBCM is, I've been registering with the electoral area directors for a very long time, and UBCM has always attended well. However, the other two, not so much. That is possibly an area.
So there is a trend here besides the COVID that we had talked about before. So I have Director Nicholson, then Director Wilson. Go ahead, Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I think I'm going to focus just on FCM. I would agree that UBCM and AVICC are quite often useful conferences to get things done and to make contacts for specific things we want to get done. And so there needs to be flexibility to attend if you feel that it is in your area's best interest. FCM, I don't think it requires even 50% of the directors to go at any one time. And I think it would be helpful to have a policy where the maximum 3 directors go to FCM at any one time, and that each director has an opportunity to attend FCM once during the term. And the chair, the EASC chair, should always have the option to go. I really think that would limit it. I am very concerned about greenhouse gas emissions from air travel. And I do not think it looks good to the community to be flitting off to all parts of Canada to do that.
Are you making a recommendation on that one, Director Nicholson, for the FCM 3 directors?
I would like to make a motion that we introduce a policy to that extent, to that basically that kind of a policy.
It's been moved and seconded.
Do that when you're ready for that.
Well, you can do it now if you want to. I mean, and it has been moved and seconded.
Oh, great. Then I will craft it.
Okay.
If everyone understands, I'll write something down.
Well, I think we have it, that up to 3 directors at one time for FCM.
But it also means that you can only go once during your term unless you're the
We've
chair.
got it. I think Ms. Harrison got that. She'll read it. You could actually read it out, Ms. Harrison, so that we understand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board that a policy be crafted that up to 3 electoral area directors attend FCM at least once in their 4-year term.
Okay, so that motion is on the floor, and you want to speak to it? You go ahead, Director Martman, Smith, and Wilson. Director Martman.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I thought I was already on the list first.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't actually make oh, yes, you are from before. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that Director Nicholson has said this, because I'm exactly in tune with this, because to me, FCM, if you're going to be a career politician, by all means go. I am never, ever going to be a career politician. And I honestly don't see the point in attending something hundreds and hundreds of miles away, which really to me has nothing to do with us as local government. I would never, even if given the choice, go. I just don't see the point. I can recall an email which came out from one director which says, oh, my hotel is so nice, it has a swimming pool, it's close to the restaurants. Wait a minute, is that why you're going? Or are you going to learn something? By all means, go to local stuff. This is why we were elected, for local problems and to deal and lead the local people. Not something in Toronto or wherever. I'm sorry, I just don't see the point. However, having said that, I will support a decrease in the number of people who can go and the frequency where they can go. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Turn to Director Martman, then Director Smith. Director Martman, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And, being someone that's worked on the national stage, I do recognize you know, there are opportunities that can come back with you from that national stage. So I do see that as being advantageous. I am really focused on the budget. And I think that as much as I would like to see everybody go and have an opportunity, maybe this policy will provide it. My initial reason for bringing this up was that it all comes down to, can we follow what we say? We had 50% reduction. We are maybe doing 3 for this. It's the rigor to stay behind what you decide, and so that's where I'm fine with this. I think it's a start, and be interested in what others have to say.
Thank you. I just have one more speaker. Director Smith, go ahead, and then we'll call the question.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to attend FCM as a new director. It was very beneficial. I know that I didn't spend time speaking or communicating with people that were from Toronto or Vancouver. I did spend time talking to many of the other attendees that were from smaller areas. It's interesting, some of the connections that you create with someone who is from New Brunswick or Nova Scotia. Those are small communities and they kind of reflect with us. They live in areas that are a little more away from the grand centers. And it was an opportunity at that point to check in with them. And I know that I spoke with many people from many different areas and sat beside many people, whether I was eating, sitting in a workshop, or in a conference room. So those I felt were really good opportunities. I think that if you only are allowed to go once in your term, that you may be missing additional information that comes out. Within 4 years, a lot of things change. We already have seen that within our own term, that when we were elected, we didn't actually know that we were going to continue with heat domes and climate crisis and a pandemic. So I think things change, and I think if you only go once in 4 years, you may not have those good connections and hear more. So I would prefer that we were given the option of 2 times within our term.
Okay, the motion on the floor is.
So I would support two times within your term, and if you choose to only go once, then that's your option. If you choose not to go at all, that's also your option. Thank you.
There is a motion on the floor.
Yes, I know there is. Director Morrison?
Yeah, thank you. And you know, it's clear where this is going, and a new board can change the policy after a year's lag time. And you know what Director Smith has just shared, I share that. I don't know whether or not hotel rooms have pools or close to restaurants, because when I go there, I'm in meetings with ministers. I'm engaging on what the grant programs are, what we can bring back to our community, networking with people that are doing the same kind of work that we're doing, going on tours of solid waste facilities so that we can help on those, have knowledge and understanding of the technologies that are in place that will impact on some of our huge budgets. If this committee decides during a budget discussion to draft policy on travel, fair enough. Didn't come to prepared to argue those points. I won't be supporting the resolution. If we want to have this discussion, we probably shouldn't be having it when we're supposed to be discussing budget. So will the resolution have an impact on the budget that we put forward here today? Not likely.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Director Smith and Director Morrison. Thank you so much. That was carried. Moving on now, any other questions for Ms. Nelson? So now did we go ahead, Director Martman?
Oh, perhaps I'm asking the question you're going to. What did we land on with some of those suggestions?
Exactly.
To staff? Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. Ms.
Over to you, Chair.
Through the chair to Director Martman, if the community information is decreased to by, say, another $13,000, which is 50% of the 27. And with the increase from transfers from reserves, that brings it down to 0.8% of an increase.
Thank you. Director Martman, go ahead.
And if the contingency was reduced from 3675 to 1,000?
Give me 2 seconds, I'll throw that one in.
And if the policy of 3 people attending decreases FCM expenditures by
I don't know if
1/3?
that decreases the FCM one because it was already cut in half, but.
Yeah, it decreases by 1/3 though, further.
Oh,
It'll take me a couple of minutes to do all those calculations and throw them in. So please
Thank
bear
you.
with me.
Thank you. I'll let you go ahead with that while I have another question. Director Salmon.
Yeah, could we also, Natalie, add the 1,000 AAP reduction?
Okay, so I through the chair to Director Salmon. So we're talking $1,000 for the AAP reduction.
Yes.
Okay, we're looking at an 8,481 for FCM, is my understanding. And we're also talking the 2,675 reduction. A question to the committee, are you looking at leaving the sundry expenses at $1,000 or were you looking at putting that down to 0?
Turn to the committee.
0.
So, which sundry were you talking about?
That's
Under
the
general expenditures.
sundry expenses are at $1,000. I heard Director Salmon say 0. I turn to Director Nicholson.
I'm sorry, did someone say they're reducing the contingency?
Yes.
I don't think it's wise to reduce contingencies or sundry expenses because they're there to provide a bit of a buffer if unforeseen things come up. So I think that's not wise budgeting.
Director Martman.
I recommended that because of the staff response to that, saying that we are solid in $1,000 for that contingency.
Okay, what is the committee's pleasure? Director Smith.
Thank you. Through to Ms. Nelson, I'd just like some clarification on the FCM expenditures. This amount was the amount that we cut in half last year. Is that what I'm trying to remember? And then if we cut it in half last year, and then we're now cutting it again, is that sufficient funds for 3 directors to attend? Can you just give some clarification on that, please? Thank you.
Ms. Nielsen.
Through the chair to Director Smith, this budgeted proposed budget for 2022 is based on 9 directors going divided by 50%. That's what it's based on in the area that it is. So looking for travel to Regina, multiplying that by 9 directors, etc., and then dividing by 50%, not based on previous year's expenses, because if it was held in Niagara Falls, that would be considerably more expensive.
So that's with 3 directors, 8,481 to
Technically
Regina.
4.5. Technically 4.5, and Ms. Wayner was going to reduce it a little bit.
Okay. Who did I have? Director Salmon. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So one other thing I flagged, so we went over the miscellaneous equipment, 13,500, and I think, Allison, you said that was for replacement laptops. Am I right? So I really don't think we're all going to replace our laptop this year, so I would suggest cutting that in half.
Go ahead,
well.
Ms. Nielsen.
Through the chair to Director Salmon. One of the reasons, this was on through recommendation in a conversation with myself and the manager of IT, Ms. Hepner, because with the recent purchase of a replacement rather of your laptops, they likely will not go longer. So you've already had them replaced. If we're looking at replacing them next year, they're going to be 2 years old. So they won't last until the end of that election cycle. So we were hoping to get onto a 4-year election cycle, 4-year replacement cycle for the equipment so that they would last through the term. That was the purpose. One of my suggestions that I had been thinking, which is up to the committee, of course, is that we actually do fund that cost through operating reserves as well. But with where we are currently, I'm sorry, Ms. Weiner, I don't know exactly where we are at this moment. I don't know if it would, if the min and max would accommodate that.
Ms. Weiner?
Through the chair to the committee, that would mean going into the 2-month mins and minimum range with the budget, the operating reserves. However, I've done the calculations, and if the committee took out $1,000 for the AA, reduced the FCM, and I did the calculations, so it would be for 3 directors to attend out of the 9, so that's the 1/3. That amount is a reduction of $8,567. And reducing contingency by $2,675, it brings the requisition down to 0.27%.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Nicholson.
I move all those changes.
It's been moved, seconded. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Okay, and so now go ahead, Director Martman, and then Director Salmon.
So did that motion include, I didn't hear it in it, about the operating reserve, about increasing it to cover?
No, it was not in that motion.
I think Director Salmon has a motion to make.
Director Salmon?
Go ahead. I was on another topic.
Sorry?
Okay.
Oh.
He said for me to go ahead.
Ah.
So I'd like to make that motion that we increase the transfer from the operating reserves to cover the costs of I think it's an increase of $27,000 approximately. Is that correct, Ms. Werner?
Yes.
To cover the cost of the election.
Second.
Okay, that has been moved and seconded. Any more? Ms. Weiner, go ahead.
Was, sorry if I may have missed it. I made a motion made to reduce the community information because there was a decrease of that as well.
No.
Because that brings it with that decrease is why it's 0.27%.
No.
No motion. Does someone want to move that? Well, we have this motion on do we not have the motion on the floor for the 27,000 first, and then we could go to that? So we have a motion on the floor currently. Are we all okay with that? I'm not seeing any hands up with that. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. Now there could be another one. Go ahead, Director Smith.
So I'd like to decrease the community information by 13,000. Is that the amount that we agreed?
It's been moved and seconded. Okay, any discussion on that?
Point of clarification, Madam Chair. My understanding is the motion was to reduce it by 50% from 27,000. So 50% would be 13,500. Is that correct?
Okay, right.
Okay. We'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Director Morrison is opposed. Motion is carried. Okay, is there anything else that we have missed? Director Salmon, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on the laptops, I'm still not quite. So I know we got the new laptops a year ago or so. Where is that in the actuals? I don't see. What budget did that come out of?
I will defer to Ms. Weiner. I believe it was covered under perhaps COVID money.
Through the chair to the committee, you are correct. Those costs were covered by COVID.
Follow up? Go ahead, Director Salmon.
Okay, that helps. Thank you. And so what we were talking about with laptops was our Surface, our original laptops that you're talking about putting on a 4-year cycle. Is that correct?
I'm talking, well, actually, I believe it's the laptops that you've received from the COVID funds, that those would be redeployed and you would be getting new equipment next year, at the end of next year.
To start with the 4-year cycle for directors. This way we were on that before COVID.
Yes.
Okay.
Right,
Director Salmon.
but we'll be down to, our Surface will just turn in, we'll be back down to one laptop, or are we still going to be going with our Surface and our
I beg your pardon.
Ms. Nelson.
Through the chair to Director Salmon, I was unaware that you still had your Surfaces. Yes, you still have that pieces of equipment in addition to a laptop.
Okay.
Director Wilson, go ahead, please. Oh, Director Salmon, are you finished? Okay.
Thank you, yes.
Director Wilson?
Yeah, thank you. I've got a new a laptop. I handed in that Surface thing with a great deal of gratitude. Thank you very much. But I honestly don't see why this replacement thing. I've been going around the world for 20 odd years. I've had a laptop on my back, and I've got the same laptop. It's a great Dell. It's built to last, and it's the same thing after 12 years old. Why are we going around? What's going on? Are people dropping them, or why do we really have to replace these things after 4 years? I
believe
just
it's
don't get
the
it.
technology that keeps changing, not the replacement for us. It's the technology every year. I mean, anyway, I'll turn to staff if there's anything else. Nope. Okay, and so I think that we're done, are we not? Okay. Yay. Alrighty, so a motion. Oh, Director Smith, Director Kuhn, Director Smith.
Thank you. To Ms. Weiner, can you please let us know what percentage we're at now? Because we've made an awful lot of changes since we had our 2.7, our 0.27. Thank you.
Ms.
Through the chair to the committee, most of those changes were involved in that 2.27. The only difference in there was the $500 difference for the rounding, and that brought it down. So it's a 0.22% increase.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go in.
Just
Director
a process
Morrison?
question.
Sorry?
Could I ask a process question?
Go ahead.
Where does this go from here? Board, corporate? Where do we next consider this with the other budget we'll be considering? Thank you.
Ms. Weiner? Where does this go from here?
Through the chair to the committee, this will be going to this with all of the other budgets. That'll be going with core to the special EASC in January, and then from that it will end up going to the board board in February.
Okay. All right, so we now have the question period. There is no questions for question period. So I turn to the committee for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.